Today we'll be talking about the Stratum Access Hub and specifically the automating of the distribution of Stratum reports. Let's take a look at our agenda and then we'll get started. So obviously we'll be talking about what the Stratum Access Hub is, and then we'll delve into all the different elements of the Access Hub for the ability to distribute email reports from Stratum. Those will include broadcast actions, being able to group those actions in logical groupings, and then being able to schedule those actions. We'll talk about a broadcast user and what that is, and then we'll step into a demo and some Q&A. The Stratum Data Hub, as you can see, there's the graphic, and we'll be concentrating today on the Access Hub, specifically the email distribution of reports. As you can see, there's different elements or ways of getting data out of the Access Hub using the Power BI connector, the Excel add-in, APIs, and also forecasting. And today we'll be concentrating on the email distribution and scheduling those for an automated basis. The Stratum Access Hub. So basically this part of the Access Hub basically extends viewers so that it provides the ability to deliver the data to users on a scheduled basis. And this could be a daily, intraday, weekly, monthly, quarterly. I've got many different users that have many different schedules. You can obviously leverage all the existing views that you have within Stratum, and you can start emailing those to users or groups of users. Obviously, everything within Stratum can be leveraged, including your users and the role security, so that when the users get their data, they are only getting the data that they're permitted to see, which makes this way more efficient. You can have one report feeding 50 to 100 different users. So ultimate flexibility and also user controlled scheduling is available too. So basically define the what, who, when, and how they're going to get the data, who's going to be the recipients, how you're going to schedule it. Will it be an email or a file share? You can do one or the other. And then you can also go in and group things together in a logical fashion and then also schedule them. So here we've got the Access Hub actions, and they can develop the action. The action itself is going to be the actual definition of who you're going to set this up for and how it's going to be set up. So the action is pretty important. It has to be attached to the view, and or you can also have an action attached to multiple views. It can be delivered in a single Excel file or multiple Excel files. You can actually decide that. You can email it, or you can distribute it to a network folder or even a cloud folder as well. You can send it up to the cloud. The recipient can be a distributor outside of your company, or they can also be an employee. So you can set up what we call a broadcast user for all the users outside of your company. And then finally, you can actually let the user attach the actual action to a schedule. So, and there's different ways that it could be scheduled, but this gives the user a little bit more freedom, much more freedom in terms of developing these actions and organizing them and then scheduling them accordingly. As you can see, obviously, with the groups and the schedules, you can have the user schedule their own actions. They can remove or reassign them to different schedules as needed. And the administrative controls are available to limit the user's access to schedules. So Stratum Access Hub, as you can see, you can administering the Access Hub, you'll have all the actions, the groups, and the schedules. Those are the main elements of the actual broadcast server. Scheduling the broadcast schedules, that's something we'll talk about in a second. That actually has to be done on the back-end server. And broadcast users are users that are not part of your your network. They're not an employee, but yet you can still send them reports. Again, you could send the reports to a file share, and then also you'll also get log files that will tell you how these run, if they're successful, etc. This can be created by advanced users and administrators, these actions, and it defines the data to be distributed. Again, we know what an action is. So this is the ability for advanced users and administrators can go in and actually define them as needed. So here we have an action menu. We can see that we can see all the actions in our environment. We could filter by owner so that we can see if we're looking for a specific action by a specific person. We can also sort and filter on the different columns when it was last processed. And we can also see, and that way we can see all the actions that have been processed recently. Here we can see the action itself. Advanced users can maintain their own actions. So they can go in and remove some views. You can see a list of views down here that are part of this action. So those based on the actual actions themselves. It can be based on the department. So, you want to think about how you want to group these things together and make those available as a grouping. And that will further allow you to organize your actions as needed. You can also lock to limit the users that can add or remove actions from the groups. So they can be locked down so that they cannot be changed by regular user the certain users. So again, what kind of groups will you need? You can group it by the day of week when they go out. You can group them by on their purpose. You can do a temporary group. So it all depends on your needs. Here we can see the lock property that lets the owner lock out other users and prevent them from changing the group and adding and removing actions. So that feature's ability to help you lock down and secure your actions as needed. The broadcast schedule, this will define the actual groups that are processed together. So again, all of these will be tied together. So an action belongs to a group then belongs to a schedule, and then the schedule itself is the one that actually gets scheduled on the server side. And again, these can be locked so that nobody can change them as well. So what type of schedules will you need? Are they going to be nightly, weekend, daily, one time only? So again, you'll need to work internally and work with IT so that they know how to schedule these on the server side. And then once they become available and scheduled, then users can feel free to maintain the schedules, add, remove actions as needed from those schedules because those are now available, within the interface so that the users can actually define which actions belong to which schedules, which gives it a level of convenience for you. Here's some examples of groups and schedules. Just, this one's based on the day of week example. So you have actions that will run on Sunday. They belong to a group called Sunday and a schedule called Sunday. So pretty simple. So on and so forth for all the days that you want to have these reports be scheduled. Here's another example where we're scheduling it that need to be processed together based on what needs to be run on a given day. So here we can see weekly sales reports and sales management reports and all the underlying actions will all be processed on Sunday. Wednesday, we have another broadcast for the sales management grouping. And then on a daily or a nightly basis, we've got inventory alerts that are kicking off as well. We also have a one-time only. It's empty, but it's available so that users could actually put those into the group when they wanted to run a schedule for a one-time only basis. So again, need to work with IT, get those broadcast schedules included, and get them scheduled on the server side so that they become, they start executing on the scheduled basis. So again, there is the back end process where it has to be scheduled on the server. And here we are. So what do you do on the server side to schedule these reports? Well, first of all, you need a scheduling agent. So you can use the task scheduler, you can use the SQL agent, um, these are different ways of using these scripts so that these schedules so that you can schedule them as needed. Here again, you have these different options to get them into the schedule. Um, and then you'll have to identify by command line your different schedule IDs so that, and it's a command line. So as you can see, we're kicking off a broadcast process executable. And then we have a parameter that we would fill in for the broadcast schedule ID. And it's pretty that simple. I mean, so all the groups that belong to that schedule and all the actions that are under those groups will all get run by that command line. So you'll also have to have an action processing account so that you'll need a user ID that has the necessary permissions to execute a command line on the server and also has an email account associated to that user account so that the emails can be sent accordingly. Here we've got the different broadcast schedules listed out within viewer down below. And then in Task Scheduler, we can see that the corresponding schedules have been scheduled as well within the Task Scheduler. That's the Microsoft Task Scheduler, by the way. So again, here's the broadcast user. This is a user that's outside of your company and has no viewer access or capabilities. So, for instance, you might have sales brokers, distributors that are not part of your company, but yet you still want to send them a report on an automated email basis. You can do that and set them up as a broadcast user. And this is basically a user profile that basically just has an email address associated to it and a security role. Okay. So that it knows how to handle security. Because you don't want to send out, you don't you don't want to send out sensitive data to the users that don't want to see, you don't want them to see certain pieces of data, maybe cost or whatever. You can set up their role and set that up as needed. Okay, so that's the broadcast user, somebody you can set up outside of your company to still receive these viewer reports. Send it out to the file share. So here's an example of an action that you can send out to a file location. And as you can see, each user under their user profile has a default file location for this purpose so that it knows where to send out these reports. So again, email, or you can place the reports into their file share on the network. So you have those options. Here's the email with the attachment example. As you can see, you get a link for all the different reports that you're sending to the user. And then within the actual Excel file are all the different tabs within that workbook. So you can see all the different reports within Excel. So you have best of both worlds. You can use the attachment or you can go in and run them interactively as well. And it'll run the view if you're, again, connected and on the internet. Here's the email with the data included in the body of the email. So instead of an attachment, you can just send them a picture of the view. And as you can see, it places a picture. Basically, it's similar to a GIF file, and it's just a picture of the data. Okay. Not as in my opinion, this doesn't get used as much because again, it's just a picture of the data. You can't really integrate it with Excel or get copy and paste outside of that. Here's a file that we pushed out to the broadcast Office 365 OneDrive. And as you can see, that's available. So you can put them out there on a shared drive out there on the cloud so that they can get access to it that way. So instead of sending it via email, you would be sending them essentially the links to those reports so that they can get them off the cloud. Okay, so let's take a look at this. I've got a demo of some of this set up for you so you can kind of understand how this all comes together. We'll take a look at how to define an action, obviously how to organize it into a group and associate it to a broadcast schedule. And then I also have an example of the command line and how you could set that up and get that schedule on the server side. That's my contact information. You can email me or call me. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. If you want to pursue implementing this, feel free to contact me, and we can go ahead and get you started, and you can start benefiting from the emailed reports. All right, without further ado, let's take a look at how we would set some of this up. Here we've got the demo available, and all of these actions. For instance, I can run a view and add an action to any view. So for instance, if I were to run my comparative sales view, then I can run that view. And if I right click anywhere within that view, as you can see, you'll get an action menu option. I can add an action to this view. I can add view to an existing action, or I can display the actions that include this view. And as you can see, we do have some actions out there that are already defined for this particular view. Okay. Now, if we wanted to add a new action, we would just right click here and go to our action menu and add action. And that's going to bring up that action menu that we were looking at in the PowerPoint earlier. You'll need to name the action and describe it. Is it a personal or a global action? It depends. If it's just for you, you can just make it personal. If you want other folks to use it and see it, and other administrators can use it, then you can certainly make it global. Here's the user list that you want, the recipient list of users that you want to receive the view. So right now it's just for me, but if I want to look for a given user, I can go out and find the user based on their name, and I can add them to the list of recipients for the report. So now I've got Karen and myself added to this. We can call this test action. And then, so further down, I can tell it what method I want it to use to distribute the data, whether it's an email or to send it to the user's file share directory. We'll leave it as email. Do I want to include it as an Excel file or as a text? Basically, that picture that we just saw is basically what you're going to get there. It's kind of misleading that it says include as text, but yeah, that's what that would be. Will it be use the viewer's export type definition? That is their default definition of whether they want the Excel report or the Excel data. The Excel report will keep all the formatting and keep everything nice and pretty for you. Excel data is going to be raw. It will not have the coloring or the traffic lighting, etc. All that stuff goes away because it processes faster. So if you have lots of data and these are running slow, the Excel data option would be the way to go, and that will speed it up significantly. So remember to use, if you have a lot of data, like literally thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of rows of data, then you're probably better off using the Excel data option here. And then give it a file name once you decide what that is. Here, as you can see, the view, do you want it to include view details? And you can say yes to that as well. And it will include all the links to the views as well. You can override the file name if you want to, or just leave it default. I normally just leave it at default, and it defaults as the actual view name. And then down below is the body of the email. This is what the user is going to see when they receive the email. They'll get the subject, they'll get the, obviously if you put anything into the body of the email, they'll get all that. Links to the views are all available. And then do you want to send the email when no data exists? And that's an interesting option there. You could say no to that if it's more of an alert type action. For instance, maybe this is an action that's showing when inventory reaches its safety or reorder point. You can then send an alert out to planners so that they can start analyzing that and start ordering more material. If you have enough inventory for certain items and everything is hunky-dory and you have nothing approaching reorder points, then they would not get the email. So you can actually set that up accordingly so it behaves more like an alert. So that's important to understand how that send email when no data exists. Okay. All right. So you got the action defined. And then we would go ahead and save that action and then define it, what group that it would be saved to next. And that would be, so now we've saved that action. to this view. And if I go to my analyst tools, I can then go to my broadcast group and I can include that in one of my groups. I've got a group already named Daily Flash Reports, and I can see comparative sales is already part of that group. So my action is already there. If I wanted to add or delete this action from this group, I can click on the add button, and then I've got all the other actions that are available for me to add this in. If I wanted to maybe put in a sales forecast alert as well, I can click on add and it will add that in as well. So now I've got sales forecast alert. I've got 4 different reports that I'm now sending out to these users. Now it belongs to that schedule. So I've got, as you can see, it's this group is belonging to a daily schedule, which runs at 1 a.m. and it's active. This actually, as you can see, it ran this morning at 1 a.m. and it finished in about 30 seconds. So you'll have access to all this so you can see how these are processing and whether they're processing successfully. All right, so that's your group. And then if we go to back to analyst tools and into our broadcast schedule, we can then see what the schedule that we just looked at, the daily schedule. We'll go inside of that, and we can see that these groups are attached to the schedule. So hopefully you can see the hierarchy, the actions belong to the groups, and then the groups, as you can see, belong to the schedules. And then the schedule has a schedule ID of a 4 there, so that I can let IT know that they can go ahead and schedule that on the server so that this actually runs. So let's take a look at the server side. We'll then take a look at the command line that we use to kick that off. Log into my demo server, and we'll take a look at how I scheduled this command line. So here's my server. I'm already within SQL Server Management Studio. Here's my daily broadcast. I can right click it. So I'm using this SQL Server agent, which is a scheduling agent that you can use from SQL Server. It's nice. I like it. It's very robust, and you can define a lot of different schedules. It's definitely better than Task Scheduler, in my opinion. So let's take a look at this particular job. If I double click it, there's the job name, the owner. If I go into steps, here's where my command line is. And as you can see, the step name is called Run Broadcast Server. So I double click that, and there's my command line. As you can see, the command line reaches out to the broadcast process executable, which is under where viewer is installed. So that's the directory where the viewer product has been installed on the server. And then there's that schedule ID of 4. So it's that simple. So now I've got my parameter in there telling it which broadcast schedule ID to execute when this thing kicks off. So that looks good. And then if we take that, and then if we look at the next step, which is the actual schedule, we can see that it runs on a daily at 1 a.m. basis. I double click on the schedule, and it runs daily every 1 day. It occurs at 1 a.m. But as you can see, you can change this to all the different schedule types. And you could be weekly, monthly, daily, hourly. It's up to you in terms of how you want to set this up. Quarterly is accomplished as well here. So you can do a lot of things using the scheduler. And then if I right click on the actual job within my SQL Server agent, then I can see the history of the job. And as you can see, it's been running successfully for a long time. So we actually get these every morning from our demo environment just to keep things running and making sure that the product works properly. Okay. So now we've got that set up. That's how we do it. As you can see, this runs within the SQL Server agent. And then obviously, if you have other schedules, then you can just right click and select new job. And then you would define another command line, another schedule, perhaps weekly, monthly, whatever you would want to do there to set all that up. Once these run, as you can see, you can then set up a folder. I have one called alerts. And as you can see, there's for today, there's my reports for today. My daily sales package report ran. And if I look at that within Excel, as you can see, I get all the different reports in the different tabs within the Excel spreadsheet. If I want to run the reports For instance, from the link, I can then click on the actual link and it'll run the report live time and step me right into the report instead of looking at Excel. And there's the report. And I can run sales plan to performance, and it just, this one has a parameter which is going to ask me for um, certain things. I don't necessarily need to include those. I can just click OK and it will run the view for me. So those are views that get run from the email. As you can see, you can either open up the Excel file or run the views live if you're connected. If you're not connected, obviously you have the Excel file that you can use, and you can double click on the Excel file and use the data within the report. Disconnected, of course. You have to get the email. So that's first things first, right? So, okay. And that's how you would set that up. And you might have more than, obviously just one schedule set up. In this example, it's pretty simple, but that's basically how you would set that up so that it would look, well, similar to what we have here, So I've got users out there, customers out there that use this. They send out reports almost on a daily basis. And some of those are the same reports, some of them are different, quarterly reports, etc. But they have all the different types of schedules set up so that their users are getting reports on through their email on a scheduled basis. So don't forget, this is going to be on YouTube. So we actually record all of our sessions. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel. Look for Sylvan Software on YouTube, as you can see, and we will have this available so you can go over this again. Don't hesitate to contact me if you have any further questions or you want to look into this further. Feel free to contact me with any questions you might have, or if you want to see if you're licensed for it, I can certainly help you with anything related to Stratum.